The night was colder than usual, the wind carried dust across the empty street, and the lights of the stalls flickered weakly. A few humans and aliens moved around, their steps quick, their faces tired. They wanted to eat, buy what they needed, and go home fast. Nobody wanted to stop, nobody wanted to notice others. In the corner of that street stood a woman, thin, trembling, and wrapped in old fabric that could hardly protect her from the cold. Her skin was pale, her cheeks sunken, and her eyes were tired but still searching. She was an alien widow, once part of a proud family, but now nothing more than a shadow. Hunger had made her weak, and loneliness had made her silent. She pressed her back against the cold wall and watched the people. She saw them buy bread, hot soup, and roasted meat. The smell made her stomach twist in pain. She had not eaten a proper meal for days. She lifted her hand once, hoping someone might notice. But nobody did. Humans avoided her eyes, aliens ignored her presence. To them, she was just another beggar, another forgotten face. The world had no space for a widow without family, no space for someone who could not pay. She lowered her head again, ashamed of her own weakness, but one pair of eyes did notice her. A little girl, no older than 7, stood near a food stall holding a small piece of bread. The girl had curly brown hair and bright eyes full of innocence. While her father was busy talking to the stall owner, she turned her gaze toward the widow. For a moment, the child hesitated. She had seen hungry strangers before, and her father had warned her not to wander, but something inside her heart told her to look again. The alien widow felt the girl's eyes and slowly lifted her own. Their eyes met. For the first time in many nights, the widow saw kindness. It was not pity, it was not disgust, it was something pure. The little girl held the bread tighter in her hands. She looked at it, then at the widow. She bit her lip as if making a big decision. The girl took a small step forward. Her tiny shoes tapped against the stone ground. The sound made the widow's heart beat faster. Was the child really coming toward her? The widow tried to straighten, but her knees were weak. She looked away, ashamed, afraid that the little girl would come close and then run back, afraid of another rejection. But the girl did not stop. She came closer and stood only a few feet away. Her hand trembled slightly as she raised the bread. Her voice was small but clear. "Do you want this?" she asked. The widow froze. Her lips parted but no words came. She could not remember the last time someone had offered her food. Her chest rose and fell quickly. She wanted to say yes, but shame held her back. She was an adult, and this was a child. How could she take food from a child? I have no money," the widow whispered. Her voice was dry, cracked like the ground in summer. The girl tilted her head, then smiled softly. "That's okay," she said, "you can still have it." Tears burned in the widow's eyes. Her hands shook as she slowly reached out, but before she could touch the bread, the girl added something else, something that made the widow's heart stop. "My dad can give you more food," the girl said, her innocent eyes shining with certainty. "If you marry him, you can eat with us every day." The widow gasped. Her hand froze in the air. The word struck her like lightning. She looked at the child in disbelief. Had she heard right? The little girl was serious. Her face was not mocking, her voice not joking. She truly believed her father could fix everything. The widow's chest tightened, a strange warmth mixed with the hunger and the cold. She had expected rejection, cruelty, or silence, but instead, this child offered not just bread but something far greater, hope. The street noises faded around her, the lights seemed dim, and for a moment, it was just the widow and the child. Suspense filled her mind. Was this real? Could she trust the words of a child? Or was this a dream born of hunger? The girl kept smiling, holding the bread out with her small hand, waiting for an answer. The widow's fingers trembled, her lips shook. Inside her heart, a question screamed louder than her hunger. Should she take the bread? And should she believe the girl's impossible promise? The cold wind blew again, wrapping around them like a warning, but the little girl's warmth stood against it. The widow felt her tears fall, and in that moment, her story had begun. The cold wind did not stop, but the little girl's hand stayed steady. She held out the bread like it was treasure. The alien widow's eyes were fixed on it. Her heart screamed with hunger, but shame pulled her back. She felt torn between survival and dignity. She whispered again, "I cannot pay, child. I have nothing." The girl's head tilted slightly. Her small curls bounced as she shook her head. "That's okay," she said. My dad doesn't ask for money, he helps people, he helps me, he will help you too. Her voice was soft, but there was an honesty that made the widow tremble. The widow pressed her lips together, her chest tightened. She wanted to believe, but she had lived too long in a world where kindness always had a price. She leaned forward, her weak hand reaching halfway, then pulled it back again. Her heart whispered, what if this is a trap? What if she laughs at me after I take it? But the little girl did not laugh. Her eyes sparkled with innocence. She took a step closer and Dee gently placed the bread into the widow's shaking hand. The widow gasped. She stared at the bread in disbelief. It was real, warm, and soft in her hand. The smell made her tears spill. Then came the words that froze her in place. If you marry my dad, the girl said with pure seriousness, you will never be hungry again. He will cook for you. He will keep you warm. You can sit with us at the table every day. The widow's throat went dry. She blinked in shock, staring at the child. Her lips trembled as she tried to form words. Mary? She whispered. Child, you do not know what you are saying. But the girl only smiled brighter. She believed her own words. Her tiny hands clapped softly as if she had found the solution to all problems. Yes, she said, you can be my mom. I don't have one. Dad needs someone. You need food. It's perfect. The widow felt as if her soul was being pulled in two directions. One part of her wanted to laugh at the impossible innocence. The other part wanted to cry, because deep inside, she wished it could be true. Around them, the street carried on as if nothing had happened. Vendors shouted, people bargained, footsteps echoed, but for the widow, the world had grown silent. The child's words were louder than all the noise. She held the bread tightly, the heat from it warming her frozen fingers. Her stomach growled, sharp and painful. She slowly brought the bread to her lips. Her teeth sank into it, and the taste filled her mouth. It was simple bread, but to her it was like a feast. Her eyes closed as tears slipped down her cheeks. She chewed slowly, afraid the taste would vanish. The girl clapped again. See? I told you, you need more food. My dad will give you. Come with me. She reached out her small hand, waiting for the widow to hold it. The widow shook her head quickly. Fear rushed into her chest. No, she whispered, I cannot. Your father will be angry. He will not want a stranger. He will not want an alien like me. The girl pouted, stamping her small foot on the ground. No, he won't. Dad listens to me. If I say you are good, then he will believe me. He will let you stay. He has to. Her voice was stubborn, strong in a way that only a child's belief can be. The widow's eyes widened. She had not felt anyone defend her in years. She had not felt wanted. She had not felt chosen. Yet here was a small girl claiming her like family. The bread was half-eaten in her hand, her body trembling with weakness. The girl's hand stayed stretched out, waiting. The widow looked at it as though it were glowing. Could she trust this child? Could she follow? Her mind filled with fear, memories of debt collectors chasing her, neighbors whispering cruel words, doors slamming in her face. Every moment of rejection burned in her heart. What if the father hated her? What if he drove her away with anger? But then she remembered the warmth of the bread, the smile of the girl, and the soft voice saying, you can be my mom. A hunger deeper than food rose inside her. It was the hunger for belonging, for a place, for a family. Her lips trembled as she whispered, child, your father will not accept me. I am nothing. The girl shook her head again. You are not nothing. You are hungry. You are sad. But you can smile if you eat. You can be happy if you stay. Come. Please. She moved closer, her small fingers brushing against the widow's cold hand. The widow shivered. The warmth of that touch was more powerful than the bread. It made her heart ache in a new way. Why? Slowly, very slowly, she let her fingers curl around the child's hand. It was soft, warm, full of life. The girl grinned, pulling her gently. See? Now you will come. Don't worry. Dad is nice. He will not hurt you. The widow staggered as she took one weak step forward. Her mind screamed with fear, but her body followed the girl. For the first time in so long, she was not walking alone. The night air was still cold, but inside her chest, a small flame of hope had started to burn. Suspense lingered. What would the father say when he saw her? Would he reject her, or would this child's bold promise change everything? The widow did not know, but she could not let go of the girl's hand. Her story had already been pulled into something new. The alien widow's steps were heavy, but the little girl's hand pulled her forward with surprising strength. Every step felt like walking into danger, yet also toward hope. The street behind them grew quiet, and ahead the lights of small homes flickered in the night. The widow's heart pounded faster. Her mind whispered warnings. What if the father is cruel? What if he sends me away? She almost stopped walking, but the girl squeezed her hand tighter. Don't worry, the girl said with a bright smile. Dad is good, he always listens to me. They reached a small house at the edge of the street. Its roof was patched, the walls worn, and smoke rose weakly from a crooked chimney. It was not rich, but it was alive. The widow stared at it as if it were a fortress she could never enter. Her feet froze on the step. The little girl pushed open the door. A warm smell of soup drifted out. The sound of a man's tired cough came from inside. The girl tugged harder. Come in, she whispered. The widow's hands trembled, but she followed. Inside, the room was dim. A single lamp burned weakly on a wooden table. The furniture was old but clean. In the corner sat a man with strong shoulders and tired eyes. His hair was messy from a long day of work. His hands were rough, scarred from labor. He looked up as the door opened. Anna, he said, his voice deep and worn, where have you been? I told you not to. His words stopped when he saw the widow standing in the doorway, his brows pulled together, his face sharp with suspicion. He rose to his feet slowly. The widow lowered her head, shame flooding her. She wanted to turn and run, but the girl quickly let go of her hand and ran to her father. Dad, don't be mad, the child said quickly. She was hungry, she had nothing, so I gave her bread. She needs us. The man's jaw tightened, his eyes moved from his daughter to the widow. He saw the torn fabric, the pale face, the weak body. His hand clenched slightly, not in anger but in worry. He took a step closer. The widow's breath caught. She whispered, I will leave. Her voice cracked like dry wood. I did not mean to trouble you. She turned to go, but the girl ran back and blocked the door, spreading her arms wide. No, she said firmly, she stays, she needs food. You can help her, you always help, remember? The man's eyes softened when he looked at his daughter. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. Anna, you cannot bring strangers into our home like this. But she is not just a stranger, Anna argued. She can be my mom. The words hit the man like a hammer. He froze, staring at his daughter, then at the widow. The widow's face burned red with shame. She stepped back, shaking her head quickly. No, no, she only speaks with innocence, she whispered. I do not expect anything, please forgive her words. The man frowned, confusion and weariness crossing his face. He sat down slowly, motioning toward the table. Sit, at least eat something, he said at last. His tone was firm but not cruel. The widow hesitated, her stomach twisted with hunger. The smell of soup made her weak. She looked at the child, who nodded eagerly, so with trembling legs, she sat on the edge of the chair. Her hands rested tightly in her lap. The man ladled soup into a small bowl and placed it in front of her. The steam rose, carrying the scent of vegetables and broth. Her eyes filled with tears. She whispered, thank you, and lifted the spoon. The warmth slid down her throat, filling the emptiness inside her. She ate slowly, savoring each bite as if it were gold. Anna clapped happily. See, Dad? She is smiling now. I told you, she just needed food. The man watched silently. His eyes studied the widow's frail figure. He saw the scars of hunger, the hollow cheeks, the broken strength. Yet in her eyes, he saw something else, the deep sorrow that could not be hidden. When the bowl was empty, the widow lowered her head again. I will go now, she whispered. Her voice shook. You have shown me kindness, I will not forget, but I cannot stay. People will talk, they will think badly of you. Anna jumped to her feet. No, she cried, running to the widow and hugging her side. You can't go, you have to stay. Dad, tell her to stay. The man leaned back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment. The room grew silent except for the crackle of the weak fire. Finally, he opened his eyes and looked at the widow. Stay for tonight, he said quietly. The streets are too cold. Tomorrow, we will decide. The widow's lips parted in shock. She stared at him, unable to believe his words. Her heart raced. A bed for one night. It was more than she had in months. She nodded slowly, whispering, thank you, I I do not deserve this. The man did not answer, he only looked at his daughter, who smiled wide with triumph. The girl hugged the widow tighter and whispered, "See? I told you, he is good, you will be safe here." The widow's eyes filled again with tears. For the first time in years, she felt warmth not only in her stomach but also in her heart, yet fear still lingered. Tomorrow I bring rejection, anger, or shame, but tonight, she was not outside in the cold street. Tonight, she was inside a home. The widow sat stiffly on the edge of the chair, her hands rested tightly in her lap as if she feared breaking something. The small home felt warmer than the streets, but her heart was restless. The man moved around the kitchen corner, ladling soup into bowls while Anna hummed happily. The smell of the food filled the room. It was simple broth with vegetables, a little bread on the side, but to the widow it smelled like heaven. Her stomach growled so loudly she pressed her hand against it. Embarrassed, Anna giggled, "See, Dad. She is hungry, she needs more than bread." The man set a bowl in front of the widow, his eyes studied her quietly, his face gave nothing away. "Eat," he said simply, his tone was calm but heavy. The widow hesitated, shame burned her cheeks. I should not," she whispered, "I am not family, I am not even your kind." Anna shook her head quickly, climbing into the chair beside her. "That doesn't matter, you are with us now. Eat, please." The girl dipped her spoon into her own bowl and slurped loudly, smiling wide as if to show how simple it could be. The widow's hand shook as she picked up the spoon. Her first sip made her close her eyes. Warmth spread down her throat, filling the emptiness that had haunted her for days. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. She had forgotten how it felt to taste real food. The man watched her carefully. His hands were rough from work, yet he rested them calmly on the table. He said nothing, but there was no anger in his eyes. Instead, there was caution, as if he was weighing her presence. The widow lowered her head under his gaze, whispering, "Thank you." Anna laughed. "See? She smiles now, Dad. You made her happy." The widow smiled weakly, wiping her tears. "No, little one," she said softly, "you made me happy. Without you, I would still be outside." The girl leaned against her, resting her head on the widow's thin arm. The touch startled her. She had not felt affection in so long that it almost broke her. Slowly, she allowed her arm to relax, letting the child lean closer. As the soup warmed her body, her heart filled with strange feelings. She had eaten before from strangers' hands, but always with disgusted looks and mocking words. Tonight was different. Tonight she was at a table, in a home, eating like she belonged, but her thoughts darkened when she remembered the whispers of the village. Humans and aliens were not meant to share homes, not meant to share lives. Already she imagined neighbors frowning, their voices sharp with judgment. She lowered her spoon, her appetite fading with fear. The man noticed. "Why did you stop?" he asked. His voice was low but steady. The widow shook her head quickly. "I should not take more. People will speak badly of you. They will say you are foolish to feed me." The man leaned back, his eyes narrowing. "Let them talk," he said. "They do not live here." "I do, my daughter does." Anna clapped happily at his words. "See? Dad doesn't care about them, he only cares about us." The widow's chest tightened. She stared at him, trying to find anger, but found none. His voice had weight, but not cruelty. She looked at Anna, who still smiled, as if the world's problems could vanish with a bowl of soup. Her spoon moved again. She ate slowly, every bite carrying both warmth and guilt. She whispered, "I have nothing to give you. I cannot repay you." The man shook his head. "We are not asking for payment." Anna leaned closer and whispered, "You can stay if you want, you can be here tomorrow too, you don't have to leave." Her small fingers slipped into the widow's hand again. The widow froze, her eyes filling with tears. She had lost her husband, lost her home, lost her dignity, but here was a child pulling her back to life with just simple words. The meal ended, but silence lingered. The fire crackled weakly, casting soft light on their faces. The widow sat with her head bowed, wondering if this was only for one night. Her heart ached with both gratitude and fear. The man finally stood, clearing the bowls. His strong hands carried the dishes away. When he returned, his gaze met hers. "You can sleep here tonight," he said. "We will talk about tomorrow when it comes." The widow's lips parted. She wanted to protest, but the weight in his voice allowed no argument. She nodded slowly, whispering, "Thank you, more than I can ever say." Anna cheered, hugging the widow tightly. "Now you are safe," she said. "I told you, Dad takes care of everyone." The widow's eyes closed, tears streaming down her face. For the first time in years, she felt not like a beggar, not like a burden, but like a person who mattered. Yet deep inside, the fear did not die. Tomorrow might bring harsh words from the world outside. Tomorrow might take this fragile warmth away, but tonight, she had shared a meal. Tonight she had a roof. Tonight she was not alone. The morning sun rose slowly over the colony. Its weak light touched the cracked walls and narrow streets. The air smelled of smoke and dust, but inside the small home there was warmth. The alien widow woke to the sound of Anna's gentle laughter. The girl was trying to braid her hair in front of a broken mirror, humming to herself. The widow sat quietly on the mat she had slept on. Her body was still weak, but her heart carried a fragile hope. She had not slept inside a home for months. She watched Anna with soft eyes, almost forgetting the fear of the night before. But outside, whispers had already begun. Neighbors had seen the widow enter the home, some had seen her eat at the table, and tongues moved quickly. In small villages, nothing stayed secret for long. By midday, the man stepped outside to fetch water. He carried the old bucket down the narrow path. Two other men stood there, leaning against a wall, their eyes sharp, their voices louder than needed. "So," one of them said with a smirk, "you've taken in a widow now." "An alien widow at that." The man kept walking, but the second villager laughed. "Are you that desperate? Or just foolish? Everyone knows they bring trouble, debt follows them, and shame follows their steps." The man stopped, his jaw tightening. He did not reply, but his silence gave them courage. They moved closer, their voices dripping with poison. "Your daughter will be mocked. She will be called the child of a beggar's keeper. Is that what you want?" The man's eyes darkened. He lifted the bucket with strong arms and walked past them. His silence was heavy, but his heart burned. He knew the village well. He knew how fast gossip could turn into judgment. Back inside the house, the widow sat stiffly at the table. Anna had told her to eat breakfast, but the words of the villagers had reached her ears through the thin walls. Shame returned to her chest like a stone. She stared at the bread in front of her, unable to lift it. When the man returned, she looked at him with trembling eyes. "They are right," she whispered. "I should not be here. I will only bring shame to you and your child. The village will not forgive this." Anna slammed her small hands on the table. "No," she shouted. "They don't know you. They don't know us. You are not shame. You are family." The girl's face turned red with stubborn fire. Her little fists clenched tight. The widow's tears spilled. She reached out and touched Anna's cheek gently. "Child, you do not understand. People's words are sharp, sharper than knives. They cut deeper than hunger." The man set down the bucket, his face unreadable. He looked at the widow for a long time, then finally spoke. "Let them talk." His voice was calm but heavy. "They do not live our life. They do not feed my daughter. They do not carry my burdens." The widow lowered her head, her voice breaking. "But their words will follow you. They will call you foolish. They will call her fatherless child's protector. They will spit when you pass." But the widow was not convinced. Deep inside, fear twisted her heart. She knew from her own past how cruel neighbors could be. She had felt it when her husband died, when debt collectors circled like wolves, when the world turned away. The idea of bringing that storm into this small house filled her with dread. Later that day, as she stepped outside to gather firewood, she felt the weight of many eyes. A group of women whispered loudly, their stares sharp. One of them muttered, "Look at her. Already walking like she belongs. She doesn't belong here. She never will." The widow's hands trembled around the wood. She kept her head low, fighting the urge to run. Her ears burned with every word. Her body felt heavy with shame. When she returned to the house, Anna ran to greet her. "You found wood. Dad will be happy." The girl's joy was so pure it almost broke the widow's heart. She forced a small smile, but inside, the whispers echoed. That night, when Anna fell asleep in her blanket, the widow sat near the weak fire. The man sat across from her, sharpening a tool with slow, steady movements. She broke the silence, her voice shaking. "You should send me away before it is too late, before their words grow into hate." The man lifted his eyes, his face calm. "And leave you to starve," he asked. His voice carried no anger, only firmness. No, that is not who I am. The widow's tears spilled again. She pressed her hands together tightly. I do not want to destroy what little peace you have. The man leaned forward, resting his arms on his knees. His rough hands curled into fists. Peace without kindness is not peace at all, he said. His eyes glowed faintly in the firelight. And I will not teach my daughter to turn her back on someone in need. The widow stared at him, stunned by his words. Her heart pounded with confusion and gratitude, in a world that had rejected her. Again and again, here was a man standing firm against the weight of the village. Anna stirred in her sleep, murmuring softly. The widow wiped her tears and whispered, perhaps I can stay one more day. The man gave a single nod. Stay as long as you need, he said. Then silence filled the room again, but it was no longer heavy with shame, it was heavy with something else, something new. The whispers of the village would not stop, but inside this small home, another story was beginning to grow. The fire burned low in the small hearth, its glow painted the wooden walls with flickering shadows. The widow sat quietly near the flames, her thin hands folded in her lap. Anna slept peacefully beside her, curled under a blanket. The man worked silently at the table, his strong hands repairing an old tool. The room was still, but the silence pressed heavy on the widow's heart. For days she had eaten their food, slept under their roof, and felt warmth she thought she had lost forever. Yet guilt gnawed at her soul. She had told them nothing of her past, nothing of the chains that still followed her. Her fear was a shadow that clung to her every step. She stared at the man, his face lit by the fire. He had given her kindness without demand, but she knew secrets could destroy even the strongest kindness. Her chest tightened, her voice trembled as she finally spoke. I must tell you the truth. The man looked up, his brow furrowed. He set the tool aside. What truth? He asked calmly. His voice carried no threat, only curiosity, but the weight of the question made her shiver. Her eyes dropped to the floor. I was not only left alone by fate, she whispered, I was hunted. The words tasted bitter. My husband died in the mines, crushed under stone. He worked for men who never cared, and when he was gone, they came for me, debt collectors, cruel and merciless. They said his debts were mine. They demanded payment I could never give. The man's eyes darkened, but he said nothing. His silence urged her to continue. They took everything, she whispered, her voice breaking. Our home, our clothes, even the food from my hands. When I could give no more, they cast me out. They said I was worthless, less than dirt. Since then I have hidden in streets, begging scraps, fleeing their eyes. If they see me again, they will hurt me, or worse. Her tears spilled freely now. She pressed her hands to her face. This is the shame I carry. This is why the village whispers. They know my past. They know I am nothing but debt and sorrow. Anna stirred in her sleep but did not wake. The man rose slowly and crossed the room. His steps were steady, his shadow long in the firelight. The widow flinched, fearing anger, fearing rejection. She could not lift her head, but he did not shout, he did not strike. He crouched in front of her and spoke softly. You should have told me sooner. His voice was low, but not cruel. Her hands trembled. I was afraid, she whispered, afraid you would send me away, afraid you would hate me as they do. The man sighed deeply, his eyes softened as he studied her face. I do not hate you, he said, but I needed to know, not for me, but for my daughter. I must protect her. The widow nodded quickly, her tears falling faster. I would never harm her, I swear it. Her voice broke into sobs. She saved me, she gave me life again. The man placed a rough hand gently on her shoulder. I believe you, he said simply. His words struck her heart like light breaking through clouds. She looked up at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. You believe me? He nodded, his jaw firm. Yes, because I see truth in your eyes. I see sorrow but not lies. And I know cruelty when I hear it. Those men took everything, but they will not take your worth, not here, not while you are under my roof. Her breath caught, her tears flowed silently. For years she had been told she was nothing, but now this man, with his tired eyes and scarred hands, gave her back her dignity with a few simple words. Anna stirred again, whispering softly in her sleep. The widow reached out and brushed the girl's hair gently. Her heart swelled with love she had thought was dead. She whispered, if I can stay, I will help, I will clean, cook, Whatever you need, I will not be a burden. The man shook his head. You are not a burden, my daughter chose you. That is enough for me. The widow's lips trembled. She wanted to argue, but the warmth in his voice silenced her. She lowered her head, whispering, then I will stay. As long as you allow. The man rose and returned to his chair. His face remained calm, but his eyes carried weight. He knew the village would not stop their whispers. He knew the debt collectors might one day come knocking, but he also knew he had made his choice. The widow sat quietly, her heart lighter than it had been in years. For the first time, she felt her truth had not destroyed her, but freed her. The fire burned low, shadows deepened, but in that small home there was something stronger than fear, stronger than shame. It was the beginning of trust. The seed of family, and though the outside world was ready to break her again, inside this home she felt safe, safe enough to dream that tomorrow might not be as cruel as yesterday. The days passed slowly. Each morning the widow woke with fear that she would be asked to leave, and each night she went to sleep with gratitude that she was still under a roof. Anna never let go of her hand, never let her feel alone. But outside the small home the voices of the village grew louder. Neighbors stared when the widow stepped out for water. They whispered when she carried wood with Anna. Some even spoke directly to the man, warning him that he was making a mistake. You will regret this, one elder said. Aliens bring curses. You will lose everything. The man listened silently, his jaw set tight. He did not answer them, but each word was a knife. The widow saw the weight on his shoulders, and her heart ached with guilt. One evening, she whispered to him by the fire, I should leave. I cannot let their hatred fall on you and your child. But before the man could answer, Anna stirred awake and sat up. Her small eyes shone with stubborn fire. No, she said, her voice shaking, but strong, you will not leave. You are my mom now. I chose you. You belong here. She crawled into the widow's lap and wrapped her arms around her waist. The widow broke into tears, holding the child close. She looked at the man desperately, waiting for his decision. His face was calm, but his eyes glowed in the firelight. She is right, he said quietly. Family is not chosen by the village. Family is chosen here. He touched his chest with a rough hand, and here, he added, pointing to his daughter's small heart. The widow gasped. Her hands covered her mouth. The man's words were simple, but to her they were greater than any promise she had ever known. The next day the whispers did not stop. In fact, they grew worse. A group of villagers gathered near the well, their voices sharp. You shame us all, one woman shouted, taking in a widow like her, letting her sit at your table. Do you think this will end well? The man stood tall, his bucket in hand. The widow stood a few steps behind him, trembling. Anna clung to her skirt with wide eyes. The crowd grew bolder. Send her away, another villager demanded. If you keep her, you are against us all. For a long moment, silence hung in the air. Then the man set down the bucket and turned to face them fully. His voice was deep, strong, carrying through the crowd. I will not send her away, he said firmly. She is part of my home, she is part of my family, and if you call that shame, then I will carry it proudly. The widow's knees weakened. Her tears spilled as she heard his words. The villagers muttered angrily, but none dared step closer. His presence, his strength, and his defiance silenced them one by one. Soon the crowd scattered, leaving behind only bitter whispers. The widow fell to her knees, sobbing. She could not believe what had just happened. The man reached down and lifted her gently to her feet. Stand, he said. Do not bow to them. You are not less, not here. Anna cheered and hugged the widow tightly. See? Dad is strong. Now no one can take you away. That night, the three of them shared a meal together. The widow's hands no longer shook when she held the spoon. Her tears still came, but they were softer, not from shame but from joy. She whispered, I never thought I would feel like this again. I thought I had lost everything. But you gave me back my life. The man shook his head. It was my daughter who gave you back your life. She chose you before I did. The widow turned to Anna, stroking her hair gently. And I will never leave you, little one. You gave me food, but more than that, you gave me a place, you gave me hope. Anna smiled brightly, her small arms wrapping around both of them. Now we are all together, we are family. The fire burned warmly, the walls glowed with soft light. Outside the village still whispered, but inside the small house there was peace. The widow no longer felt like a beggar or an outcast. She felt like a mother, like a wife, like someone who belonged. The man sat back, his eyes heavy from a long day of work, but a faint smile touched his lips. For years he had raised his daughter alone, carrying every burden in silence. Now, with the widow by his side, he felt something he had not felt in a long time. Complete. The widow leaned close, whispering a promise only the fire could hear. I will not waste this chance. I will care for them with all I have. I will never let hunger or sorrow touch this home again. And in that quiet vow, her life transformed. From a starving widow abandoned in the cold streets, she had become part of a family, not through blood, but through kindness, trust, and a little girl's innocent words. Love had been born at a simple table, where bread and soup had turned strangers into something greater, and though the world outside was harsh, inside their home they had something stronger than hunger, stronger than shame, stronger even than fear. They had each other.